Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to the Purple Breakdown. This is going to be the second podcast that I've made, and I know that I said I'd be posting about once a week, and that's normally what's going to happen. But so much has gone on over today and yesterday that I just had to make another episode to keep up with what's going on. And so normally I'll be posting about once a week. That just works best with my schedule and all the planning that goes in behind the episodes and the research and everything that happens. But again, just so much has happened that I had to make another episode to keep up with it. We're just going to jump straight into it. And why this episode's coming out, it all goes back to starting with John Harbaugh and the Ravens organization deciding to fire him, which I think was the right choice. I talked about it yesterday that John Harbaugh has been the Ravens head coach for 18 years. He took the Ravens to a Super Bowl, was constantly getting into the playoffs. Normally you think about this and you look at it and go, yeah, that's a great head coach. Why do you fire him? Just what I discussed yesterday, the inconsistencies in the offense, the defense beginning to fall apart. And yes, you can put that partly on Zach Orr. But at some point when the team is so inconsistent and the expectations are high and the results are low, you just got to go, it's been 18 years and we haven't gotten over that hump but once. And we just keep failing at the same points. It's not just the players, it's the coaches who are supposed to put that expectation, put the players and coach them into the positions to succeed so those don't happen. And that doesn't happen. But it did. So after the Ravens lost to the Steelers, Scotty and the Ravens organization decides time to be done with John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is now out the door. I think the highest odds of him moving on right now are to the Giants. And I heard that the Dolphins are also interested in bringing him in to their organization. And I wish him the best of luck wherever he goes. But I think it was the right move letting him go now. Whether or not others within the NFL community agree with that or not, and the other announcers and anyone else who does that. But I think it's the right choice. And since then, the Ravens organization has decided we want to find the best coach for the team. That's what they are trying to do right now. And they have been casting out the rod in every single direction, trying to hit a whole bunch of targets, seeing which one is the best. And so a ton of news has come out yesterday, ton of news has come out today, and we're just going to take a dive into the Ravens as a whole. I think it's good to start with a few objectives that going into next season, I would say the Ravens are really looking, and the fan base is looking for the team to turn around its inconsistencies, be more consistent on the offense, not as much hero ball, less turnovers when it comes to the fumbles. Derrick Henry had quite a few. Zay Flowers untimely fumble and some interceptions that were thrown, and we're just looking to turn that around. Ravens organization looking to turn that around. Fan base wants that to turn around. Team needs to turn that around. Not do as much of that and the constant sputtering out in games of the offense, and also just bringing back the defense, making the defense better, back to one of what it was, being a top 12, top 10 defense that is what it should be. And so the Ravens organization looking to turn that around, and they're diving in to head coaches to look for that. So I said yesterday that a few of the coaches that being interviewed or requested interview. And so we're just going to start, and I'm going to repeat a little, but we'll get through it. So one of the ones I said yesterday, Anthony Weaver, he is the Dolphins defensive coordinator, and we requested an interview on him. Well, the Ravens requested an interview on him. He has a lot of connection to the organization. He was drafted back in 2002 and played 4 seasons with the Ravens before moving on. I believe he went to the Texans after that. And then after his career as a player, he went on to be a coach. And he was the coach, defensive line coach for the Jets in 2012, went on to Buffalo in 2013. 2016, he went over to Houston. He was defensive line coach on all these, and then DC for 2020, for the Houston Texans. 2021, he came back to the Ravens and was the D-line coach and the run game coordinator. And then in 2022 was promoted to assistant head coach for the Ravens before taking on his current position as DC for the Dolphins. So he has a lot of connection with the Ravens. And the Ravens know who he is. So I understand why he's in the picture of getting talked to as being coach, because he's just been a part of the organization. The organization likes putting people they trust and that they know in place. That was Zach Orr. Zach Orr came up through the organization, was a former player, and the organization decided he should be the defensive coordinator. And so I understand why he's in the picture of getting talked to. I will say this past year, the Dolphins' defense was ranked 22nd in yards allowed per game and then fourth the year before. So he has had success as a defensive coordinator, and he has also been interviewed to be the head coach of Washington and Atlanta prior to this a few years ago. I really think he has some talent. I think he can be a good defensive coordinator. I don't put him in as one of my top choices as a head coach, but I understand why he's in the conversation for being the next Ravens head coach with the connections he's had to the organization and his defensive success. I think the hope of bringing him in would be turn the defense around, hire the right offensive coordinator if you get rid of Monken, and that he would be able to inspire the defense, bring back a physical toughness that was seen before, and play complementary football across the board. The next person who the Ravens are requesting an interview is name sounds familiar to many people because he is Gary Kubiak's son, as I said yesterday, who was a former Ravens OC who went on to be a head coach for the Broncos and win a Super Bowl with them. And he has been offensive coordinators across the board all over the place. His son most recently and is currently right now the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. And we've all seen the season that he's put together there with Sam Darnold getting him a Pro Bowl, JSN unlocking him. That's partially because Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were also out. JSN was the number one receiver there at that point, but he still totally unlocked him and helped that. And he's been around the league quite a bit. He's coached for the Vikings, the 49ers, the Saints, and now the Seahawks. He's learned under his father, Shanahan. He has connections with the Ravens, not only through his father, but current head coach of the Seahawks, Mike Macdonald, who was the former defensive coordinator for the Ravens, Mike Zimmer. He really likes a wide zone offense, and that could play really well into Lamar, quarterback keepers, play action type. And he has the ability to adapt to different offenses, having played through and coached through, not played, but coached through so many different offenses and different organizations. And a lot of teams right now are interviewing him. I'd say his biggest downfall would probably be just that he's not been higher than an OC. He has just been an offensive coordinator. That's the highest he's got. So he lacks some head coaching experience. And if the organization brings him in, the hope is that you can spark the offense into just being entirely consistent, be a top one or two offense in the league, outscore every game. This is getting into the point of like, the hope is at that point the offense is so good that the defense doesn't matter as much. And I think if any lesson can be learned is that as good as an offense can be, you really also want the defense to be good, because defenses win championships. I know that's just a saying, but it's true. The Bengals put it to the test this year where they tried getting one of the best offenses in the league. And I mean, if they were not spending their money, as I said yesterday, between three players, most of the salary cap, and could divide that up more and actually get a defense, it'd be a really good team. Because they have the offensive weapons capability to do this. And everyone even saw this last year with the offense that the Bengals were throwing up last year. But if your defense is the worst in the league and you can't stop people from scoring, you're going to get shootout after shootout after shootout, and you're not going to win every single shootout. The chances of winning those close games, sometimes, yes, teams do it, but at some point catches up to you, especially in the playoffs, where now it's not just okay, well, we lost this week, but we won 2 games prior and we can still make the playoffs. It is you win or go home. And so if the Ravens hire Clint, then you really need to make the right defensive coordinator change and either somehow making Zach Orr see that he needs to change that defense because it's lacking the toughness and honestly, I think it's sort of lost its confidence too. I think that's fair to say that it's lost its confidence. How Humphrey was talking, the highs and lows, not living up to what they expect. Roquan Smith just saying it sucks. I mean, it sounds like a deflated defense that's lost its confidence and that needs to come back to. I would say get rid of Zach Orr, and you then need to find who would be the next DC for the Ravens that could bring that confidence back to the team. And then today, 2 interviews happened. The Broncos came to Baltimore. That's what happened today. Ravens interviewed both Vance Joseph and the other what's his name? Davis Webb, the quarterback's coach for the Broncos, and Vance Joseph, who is the DC or defensive coordinator for the Broncos. I'll start with Davis Webb. He's the quarterback coach for the Broncos, former NFL player, 6 years in the league. He was drafted by the Giants, then went to the Jets, spent 3 years on the Bills. And the interesting thing about his time at the Bills is the Bills supposedly saw his talent before he went to the Broncos as a quarterback's coach. And in his last year, he was behind Josh Allen in the second string. And they asked him to retire, apparently, and become the quarterback's coach to help coach Allen up. So there's confidence in showing of his coaching ability. I mean, what he's done with Bo Nix in 2 years should say a lot for itself. And I mean, Bo Nix development has just been crazy. And this past year, he also became the pass game coordinator for the Broncos. And so the thought process bringing him in is a young head coach that can bring change to the team, fresh ideas, new perspective, focus on the offense, and again, clean up the offensive inconsistencies, stop these stalling drives or the untimely turnovers, bring consistency to it, make it a high-scoring offense, work on developing Lamar up even further and more. That'll be a specialty. We'll be working with Lamar and developing the quarterbacks. At that point, you just got to make sure you're hiring the right offensive coordinator, make sure to support him, make sure you're hiring again a really good defensive coordinator because you said previous mistakes with the defense. I think what's going on here is whoever you hire, whether it is the a defensively minded head coach, you need to pair with a good offensive coordinator. I know you're thinking, duh, like, what are you saying? Everyone knows this. But it's harder than it sounds sometimes. You get a defensive-minded head coach that's going to bring the defense back up, play complementary football. You can't let the inconsistency on the offense continue. You somehow have to clean that up. And if you hire an offensive-minded head coach to clean up the offensive inconsistencies, you need to get somebody on the defensive side that is going to clean up the defense. What the Ravens have to do going forward in their hiring process is figure out how are we not just going to clean up one side, how are they going to clean up both sides? And so Davis Webb could be an answer of how you start with cleaning up the offense and developing Lamar. Now, on the flip side of the coin of all the Broncos coming into Baltimore for interviews, Vance Joseph, who also completed his interview today, is the defensive coordinator for the Broncos. Guys, if you watch the NFL and the games that happen, I think his defense shows for itself. The Broncos are ranked second in allowed yards this year, 7th last year. They get after the quarterback like nobody's business. I mean, 60-plus sacks previous year, setting a franchise record. They are after the quarterback all the time. And that's great. I mean, how are you going to prevent the pass from going? Well, if you're hurrying them to throw up really often, and if you're constantly sacking them and making them have longer downs, then that's great. And that's one of the things that the Ravens need to work on is the pass rush last year was atrocious. And so if you're a defensive coordinator or not even just a defensive coordinator, if you're a defensively minded head coach, no matter who you are as head coach coming in, one of the problems you're solving on defense is how do you stop this lackluster pass rush? That's part of the problem on the defense side is we just never were getting after the quarterback. 30 sacks this year. I mean, we had more than 50 last year, but they came in spurts where we'd have a whole bunch one game and not in some other games. And so you're trying to fix the pass rush. You're trying to fix the mentality of the defense, the inconsistency of the secondary. And Vance Joseph solves this by just having such a good defense. I mean, their secondary strong, and I'm going to say some of it is the Broncos players. You cannot go about this without having good players, and they have really good players, especially in the secondary. But if you're constantly getting after the quarterback, you're giving an easier time for your secondary. And he could bring that system to Baltimore, bring that system and try and inspire the players up, bring confidence back to them, bring a toughness back to them, get after the quarterback, and the pieces are in place there at Baltimore. There's talent there. Baltimore has talent. Just got to use it right, bring that confidence back to the team, and he could be the one to do it. He has had a previous stint at head coach before as being the head coach for the Broncos. And his record at that time was 11-21, but the record doesn't speak entirely to his success. I mean, good defenses. Yeah, let me get the stats up on them. Let's get the stats up. I know those years were good. So yeah, head coach, 2017, 2018. If you look at this in 2017, Broncos roster, I mean, the quarterbacks were Trevor Seaman and Paxton Lynch at backup. That's not a great offense. And then 2018, you had Kevin Hogan as your starting quarterback, but they had top-ranked defenses those years. I think one of those years they was ranked 7th. So you have success there on the defensive side, and those years he has success defensively. Yeah, you don't have as much success offensively, but what he was lacking there on the roster on the offense, he will have coming to the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. If we can extend Isaiah Likely, and bring in a little more depth at hopefully the receiver position. I'm going to do an episode on what the Ravens could go in drafting, but they could definitely use a little extra talent going down the wide receiver depth chart instead of just constantly bringing in older wide receivers like DeAndre Hopkins and OBJ. So tried compensating there, but he will have an offense that will work for him. So that could be the differences, and that could propel the Ravens to a winning season, and not just a winning season, a Super Bowl. If he can inspire the defense and the offense can clean up some of his inconsistencies, and he has an OC that he trusts. The Ravens had some more announcements today of people that they've requested interview or scheduled an interview with, one being the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, Matt Nagy. Ravens have an interview scheduled with him. He's been the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs twice. Has had success with them. He's won 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs. He's had time to work with elite level talent at quarterback. I said it yesterday. As much as Ravens fans and a lot of the other AFC North does not like Patrick Mahomes, you got to respect the talent. MVP level player, constantly in Super Bowls, winning them, lost a few. But Matt Nagy has that experience working with an MVP level player and the talent that comes with it, and is typically good at creating offensive schemes and moving the ball down the field. He has had a stint at head coach before. He was the Bears from 2018 to 2021. Did not have as much success there. He did leave them to one playoff appearance, but did not have as much success. And he has an offense that could suit Lamar. Has a West Coast style offense that using the pass as an extension of the run and to open up the plays down the field and stretch the field. But I have my limitations around him too. I would be one who would fall into the assumption a little that I would like to see him maybe not at the Ravens. I think it's the best way to say it. He's not that high up on my board of people I would want coming to be head coach at the Ravens. He'd be coming to fix the offense. And yeah, he has that experience of working with Patrick Mahomes, and you could say he worked with Lamar then and bring Lamar up, bring consistency to the offense. But to what extent could he manage the whole team? Need a defensive coordinator he could trust that could bring consistency to the defense. Looking at that and looking at his time, really didn't succeed well with the Bears. Success has come with the Chiefs, and you got to wonder to what extent does that Chiefs roster just boost his resume because you have such a good quarterback there. You had such a good roster. And this past year, Chiefs offense takes a little tank. And now, yeah, you can say a chunk of that was Patrick Mahomes going down. And yeah, a chunk of that was Patrick Mahomes going down. I mean, nobody's offense improves when your starting quarterback goes out. But even before Patrick Mahomes got injured, the offense just wasn't looking the same as before. And so he's not that high up on my board, is what I'm trying to say. I think the Ravens can do without him. But that's just my opinion. The Ravens today also have requested an interview with Cliff Kingsbury, who was the OC for the Commanders. Cliff Kingsbury is also very similar to what would be coming in with Matt Nagy, who has experience working with the quarterback. And I'm not saying they're the exact same. Two different offensive styles, definitely. But Cliff Kingsbury has experience working with a quarterback that would be almost similar to the archetype Lamar is. That run and pass, because he was the offensive coordinator for the Commanders, who have Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is on that same archetype type that's going down Lamar's route. And last season, we all know how the Commanders' success was 28.5 points per game. They were doing well. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship before losing there to the Eagles. And they beat the Lions in Detroit in the divisional round. And I just, as much as people say, well, the strength of schedule that they had isn't that good, and you can compare that to the Patriots this year, I say for both of them that look like, yeah, maybe the strength of schedule is easier. But if you make it all the way to the NFC Championship, it's not because of a fluke. Your team had talent on it, and the offensive coordinator and Cliff Kingsbury there as OC obviously was making the right schemes and fitting in the talent around Jaden Daniels and making the right play calls that helped boost them to make it there. And that would be coming into Baltimore, as said before. He would be coming in to bring his offensive expertise, clean up the offense, make the inconsistencies go away, and make it a consistent offense that's scoring lots of points. But this is going down the route again of, can an offense win a Super Bowl without as a good defense? And you'd have to clean up the defense, so you'd have to find a defensive coordinator, because I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to, you have to have a good defense if you're going to go on and win a championship. I mean, that's just what the statistics point to, too. And the past few years that the Ravens have, especially 2023, losing by one score and all these championships games to the Chiefs and losing by one score there, and one scores games consistently when the defense has been good. You need to clean up the offensive inconsistencies. I understand that. Cliff Kingsbury may not be my top choice. I mean, he was 27, 38, and 1 as the Cardinals head coach when he had his stint there. Not saying he's good. I think he's an amazing offensive coordinator, and he may be worth a shot. Probably not on my top of the list right now. He's not on the top of the list. Other person we called in and it requested an interview with today is the previous head coach of the New York Jets and the current defensive coordinator of the 49ers, Robert Saleh. I think his time at the Jets shows a little bit. He had a 20-36 record. They're expecting a lot. Their drafting of Zach Wilson did not help their time there. They're picking up of Aaron Rodgers, and then Aaron Rodgers immediately getting injured in the first game within 4 snaps was not helpful. He had top defenses. I mean, he had a second-ranked top defense to fourth-ranked top defense in those years. So the defense was like none other those years. It had Super Bowl caliber defense, did not have the reflection on the offense, which goes to show a defense wins championships, but it has to be complementary on the other side where you at least have a good enough offense to keep score with the teams you're going to play. A lot of other teams are requesting interviews with him right now. I mean, he's had success, and not just success defensively at the Jets, but also success defensively at the 49ers. This year, the 49ers have a great defense. Previously, what led up to him getting hired by the Jets was his defensive coordinating at the 49ers that was so good. And so this recent success again is what's bringing confidence back in to try and bring him. And the thought is just like all these other defensive coordinators and defensive minded potential head coaches is that you inspire and bring that physical toughness back to the defense, bring consistency to the defense, not letting up as much plays. You solve the pass rush. You solve the letting deep passes on us. I was talking about yesterday the amount of 20-plus yard receptions and passing plays that we let up and the amount of 40-plus yards. There was 58 in 2024. This past year, there was 64 20-plus yard plays, and previous year, there was 6 40-plus, and this year, 9 40-plus. So you got to find a way to bring that down. I think part of that's getting after the pass rush. So can you bring the pass rush back? Can you bring consistency to the secondary? If you can do that and then bring in an OC who's going to bring consistency to the offense and just consistency as in not stalling out as many drives, not having the mistakes that are being made constantly, then Robert Saleh could be one or a good choice. And the final one I want to discuss today is the Ravens have requested an interview with defensive coordinator for the Vikings, Brian Flores. He's been a coach around the league for a while, been a coach for the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Vikings. Not head coach, but in other roles. Was the head coach of the Dolphins between 2019 and 2021. Not as much success there. 2 seasons above 500. One not. 5-11. I think the other was 10-6. I think the final one was 9-8. I want to say somewhere around there. And why he's such an interesting prospect to me is not just beyond the previous times as being a head coach and having previous head coach experience and having good defenses some of those years. And it's his current time with the Vikings and what he's been doing with them. They're a blitz heavy team that gets after the quarterback. They blitz 47.1% of the time. I said this yesterday. But they get after the quarterback constantly. He's disguising coverages with this. And an interesting thought is, you look at the Vikings, they have the 3rd best defense this year, at least in yards allowed per game. And they got quite a few turnovers. And honestly, they stalled the Ravens offense quite a few times when the Ravens played the Vikings this year. But the Vikings did not have a single person on the defensive side make a Pro Bowl. But he gets the most out of every single one of his players out there. And maybe you don't have Pro Bowl level talent, or at least considered by the NFL Pro Bowl level talent, but you get the most out of it, and you have a coordinated defense with toughness and physical aggression and making versatility out of the players that you have to make that happen and to have a defense that was almost like no other this year. And it's very unique in how it plays. I think him coming in and being interviewed and potential head coach next for the Ravens is the same as all the other defensive-minded head coaches that would be coming in. Bring back physical toughness to the team, getting after the quarterback, which is fixing that pass rush, so putting pressure on them, and if you're at least not sacking them, hurrying them to throw up so they make a bad throw, instilling confidence back in the team, and cleaning up the inconsistencies on that backside. And I know he plays mostly a split coverage defense, which could fit, and the blitz packages he'd bring would work well with Kyle Hamilton. Anyone of these defensive-minded head coaches that come to Miami, to the Ravens and Baltimore, are going to have to figure out how to use Hamilton because he's such a versatile player. And I think all of them are just going to love having him. And I think they're going to love a lot of players that are on the defensive side because no matter who's coming in, both on offense and defense, you got to love it because there's key players in all positions that this team is set up to compete. And I really like Brian Flores. I think he's one of my top candidates that I would consider right now. I think he can bring that back up. If I'm looking at the defensive side, I think my top two are Brian Flores and Vance Joseph so far. I think those are two big ones that would be able to do that and bring the defense back and make it a good defense again. So I'd be looking at Flores and Vance Joseph. If you want to swap over onto the other side and look at the offensive-minded head coaches, there's some here that I wouldn't mind. I think would turn out well. I think Clint is one of the obvious ones. I think a lot of teams have interest in him, and for good reason. I think we should have interest in him too, and we do. And I think he'd be a great one. So I'd put him up there with it. And then it'd be an interesting one, and as many others may not agree with me on this one, giving it a shot and hoping for the innovation, maybe Davis Webb coming in and doing it. And if not, he'd make a great offensive coordinator, I believe. He's going to get picked up somewhere. I think my top on the offensive side of the ball right now would definitely be Clint Kubiak, looking at him. But my top two coaches right now, out of who the Ravens are bringing in, is Brian Flores and Vance Joseph. Those are top two. I think in order to bring this team back, the organization needs to look at it, solve one side of the coin first, and what's the side that's more pressing to solve. And the side that's more pressing to solve right now is the defense. Bring a defensive-minded head coach in, bring in Flores, bring in Joseph, somebody who's going to have the know-how and the grit to bring that grimy defense back that's in your face, pressing the quarterback, head down, tough defense, bringing that back. I think that's Brian Flores or Vance Joseph. Those are the two. And then when that starts getting cleaned, you can flip it over, and there's already the pieces on the offensive side. If the offense can be like last year, maybe not even like last year, maybe like 2023, where it's consistent, it's putting up points every game, the defense can hold, the offense can do enough. Bring in an OC who can clean it up a little bit, but solve the defense first. The offense just needs cleanup. The offense needs cleanup. That's what it needs. No hero ball, taking what's given to you, getting the first downs, consistently getting in the red zone, getting more touchdowns when in the red zone because our red zone offense was not very good this past year. Just bringing a little more consistency to it. So you clean that up, but the defense needs more than a cleanup right now. It needs confidence stalled back into it, and that's where Flores or Joseph would come in and solve that. Now, as much as I'm going in and saying this, there's still one candidate I would like to see brought in for an interview. I think Stefanski is worth an interview. With what he's done with offenses, his proven success, and how his offensive style completely fits with what Lamar does. And if you're talking about a person that could clean up the offense entirely and make the offense pretty seamless, I'd go with Stefanski. And I think that the Ravens organization should consider him right now and should take a serious hard look and bring him in for it. But as of right now, these ones are the only ones we've brought in that the Ravens organization has brought in to interview. And we are all just going to have to wait and watch because I bet the Ravens organization is going to bring in more to interview over the coming days. Maybe even into next week. It's going to take a little while before a head coach is announced. Or they may surprise us and real quick here soon decide on one. But I'll try and keep up to date with all of them and keep up to date with what's coming out. If any big news comes out, I'll announce it. Make an episode. I'm going to thank everyone for joining in today and for listening to the podcast. If you're on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave comment, share. If you're on Spotify, share it too with more people. Only way this grows is if it shares. Leave a review. I'll be talking with everyone. Follow me on Instagram and X. I can't wait till next time. Till then, everyone.